I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to Southwest Magazine. Today I'm joined by Stéphane Picard and Jordan Holmes from Cliff Valley Astronomy. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
It's been an exciting time to look up in the sky. Tell me a little bit about Cliff Valley Astronomy. I'll start with you, Stéphane, how it got started and what it exactly is that you do.
So we're going to go back to a tough period for a lot of people during the pandemic. I was always in astronomy, fascinated by it, and I say jokingly it's a mistake, but I jumped from astronomy into astrophotography during the pandemic, and I really got the bug really hard. And if astronomy is expensive, astrophotography is uber expensive. So I'd reach a certain level where I'd spent several thousands of dollars in the equipment I had, and to make the next jump, it was going to be a big investment. So I was like, I did okay professionally, but we love to travel. I got grandkids now to spoil, so we didn't want to give up too much. So I said, well, I could make some money maybe in offering an experience, and I bring my powerful telescope and give people a show of what they can't usually see themselves. Not everybody is going to spend the $3,000-4,000 on the astronomy equipment, or spend the 100 hours of sometimes very tormentful learning the hobby and the science and behind it. So sure enough, we started doing modest star parties, mostly kids' birthday parties or spouses or family reunions. And eventually I knew there was going to be an eclipse this past year. I knew New Brunswick had 4 of Canada's 23 certified dark sky site, which gave us a little bit of punching above our weight class for a small province. So I started diving into astrotourism, and sure enough, now the ball's rolling quite fast, and we're going in several directions. We're planning trips to Egypt for the 2027 total solar eclipse. We have a network of tourism operators. In the first year, we started with 4 partners. This past year, we got it almost to 30. We're hoping for 75 next year. So that's growing super fast. And now we're looking at expanding our star party with affiliate markets outside of the province. So there's a lot of things going on, but all exciting.
I think all New Brunswickers learned the path of totality phrase last year when we had that amazing eclipse. Jordan, you have a strong tourism background. Tell us a little bit about some of the options that you offer, from stargazing parties to events such as the one in March coming up that will be right here in St. Andrews.
Yeah, certainly. So obviously we have the event coming up in March, which is kind of taking a lot of our focus. It's going to be a big deal in Charlotte County, and we're hoping to draw a lot of attention into the event and a lot of spotlight on St. Andrews and Charlotte County as a whole. Aside from that, we have the eclipse tour that's coming to Egypt in 2027. Ahead of that, we're looking at a few other activities. Nothing's really set in stone. I know that we're hoping to kind of get into maybe some rocket launches down in Port Canaveral, or I know we're looking at some summer equinox, or winter and fall equinox tours potentially. So there's every fall and every spring, I believe it is, in Mexico. There's a temple that when the sun hits just right, it kind of looks like there's a snake coming down the stairs of the temple. And it's kind of around the same time every year. So we're looking at seeing how we can sort of put together tour activities around that as well.
How cool. So Cliff Valley Astronomy can take you around the world, but you mentioned before we started filming that New Brunswick has these incredible skies that I think so many of us that live here, we can at times take for granted how clear it is at night. What makes our province so special to people that care about looking up at night in the sky?
For us, I think it's the geographic assets that we have. We're not a heavy populated province, so even in the big city centers like St. John, Moncton, Fredericton, you don't need to drive more than 10-15 minutes to access a decent sky. So I think that plays along with us. We have a beautiful coastal and the inner river systems with the forests and all that. There's plenty to see. It's just, what do you do with folks at night? So we're really fortunate because 80% of Americans do not see the Milky Way from where they live, and now Canada, it's starting to creep above 60%. So I talked to tourism operators that see people from New York, Ontario, and all that, and they keep saying how their kids freak out because they've never seen stars like they can see here. So it's really quite a novel experience, and it's something that most people remember. And unfortunately, because as society keeps evolving, light pollution keeps increasing. If you look at the corridor of Northeast North America, that includes Southern Ontario, Southern Quebec, and from all the way down from the Virginia heading up northeast, it's so heavily light polluted. They do not get to enjoy a decent sky until they reach our part of the world, kind of. A little bit in Maine, but I think New Brunswick has some key strengths that, you know, we can capture the people, and hopefully what we want to do is keep people here because of the astrotourism, so get coastal and rural areas to benefit from, instead of people staying in the big cities and then taking the day trip to the small communities. We want them to stay overnight, and because when that happens, depending on the accommodations, the spending effect is 3 to 4 times every single night. So that can help a lot of small businesses in the rural areas, because most small communities around New Brunswick, tourism is probably a top 3 industry, right? So, and usually we only have 4 or 5 months to make a go of it. So if we can create more opportunities that way with astrotourism, because we have the sky, nobody owns the sky, right? So it's there for people to enjoy. You don't have to be a proficient astronomer with expensive equipment. A meteor shower, you need a comfortable chair, dress accordingly for the weather, and just know where to look and enjoy the show. Same thing, you know. So it's not always expensive stuff and stuff you see on the Discovery Channel. Some stuff is very enjoyable with the naked eye, or even a pair of binoculars. That people would be amazed at the number of objects they can see in binoculars, and from the summer months to the winter, because the sky changes with each season. So there's always a reason to come back and look at the sky each night.
We are going to experience what you speak of firsthand right here in Charlotte County, right here in St. Andrews, actually.
Yes.
And I think it's really, I can't stress enough how amazing this is in terms of shoulder season. In Charlotte County, shoulder season is a huge part of what we try to figure out in terms of tourism. Summer's great, it's always busy.
Yeah.
You're bringing one of these experiences to St. Andrews at the end of March. Jordan, you've spoken about this already, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what people will experience here, and who you think will come experience this right here in our community.
So March 29th will be this is an occasion where it's the event itself, and location is playing a factor on why it's happening on March 29th. We cannot change the date of the eclipse. That's the date it's happening. It's just that the sweet spot for how much of the moon will cover the sun, the peak of it will be right over western New Brunswick, and the line goes right above St. Andrews. So when we were looking at that information, I realized that when the sun rises over the Bay of Fundy, it's quite a low horizon. So we're going to see the eclipse sooner, and because of that, a little bit longer than most people. And as you drive away from east or west of St. Andrews, the percentage of obstruction of the moon will decrease. So here it's going to be about 86% coverage of the sun. So it's quite a prominent partial eclipse, but as you go eastward or westward, that percentage will decrease till eventually some of the states, like I think Rhode Island, New York, and all that, it's only going to be a very small sliver. So we're going to be have the best seats in the house. The eclipse starts actually in the ocean near Brazil, and if you follow that magic line, it's not going to be till you hit New Brunswick and the part of Nova Scotia that this is going to be the most visible place for that obstruction to occur. Europe's going to get a very small percentage, but it's going to be very short. Here it's going to be at sunrise, so which is kind of unique for you don't always see a rising solar eclipse of any kind, so it'll make it a neat occasion as well. So that's the distinguishing factor there.
And from going on your website where you can book different expeditions or different parties, I noticed that you can either do one that has accommodation, so you work with accommodation providers if someone's traveling in, but you could also be from the area and take part in some of the events that you plan.
Absolutely. Most of our partners are in rural areas, coastal areas, so they have access to a wonderful sky. They have unique offerings, whether it's a cottage, an inn, glamping units and all that. There's great different activities across our beautiful province and all that. So there's a different flavor for astrotourism. So if astronomy is looking at stuff beyond the horizon, astrotourism brings what's within the horizon. You know, it's the natural beauty, the landmarks, the history, the culture. So you can now play with storytelling. We're excited to work with some First Nations around the province on developing those types of experiences and all that. So that was a personal goal of ours to get. For so long they had been told they can't share their culture. You know, it's an unfortunate time in Canada's history, but my point of view was there's such beauty in the storytelling of what nature represents for our First Nations and their ancestors and all that. I thought that should be shared. So luckily we're having some engagement, and we're looking forward to seeing something come out of it here very soon. So
how cool.
Yeah.
What did you learn, Jordan, from even this past year when we had this path of totality right here in New Brunswick in terms of tourism and the interest in traveling to where we are right now? For people around the world who want to get a better glimpse of what's happening above us.
So a few of the things that I've noticed, and really this is coming from the perspective of myself and my peers that I've interacted with in the travel industry, we found that astrotourism, or even just astronomy in general, has kind of climbed to the top in terms of you know, what's sort of driving travel. We're seeing more and more people are interested in traveling to a destination specifically for the night sky, whether it's an eclipse or an event similar to an eclipse, or really it just sort of fits into whatever, you know, if someone happens to want to go to Spain, well, there's an eclipse happening in Spain in 2026. Maybe they want to go, you know, go to Spain around the same time that there's an event happening. But what's been really interesting for me to see, you know, with the eclipse that we had back in April. Now, I didn't see this myself, you know, what the trends were, but the people that I'm connected to in the travel industry indicated to me that there was sort of this surge of travel, all heading towards the path of totality, whether it was New Brunswick or other parts of North America as it kind of shifted up. So there were a lot of people coming into Texas, for instance. So just to kind of give you an idea, and I think with the solar activity that we've been having, and it's continuing to kind of happen, you know, the Aurora Borealis, which I'm sure everyone has a friend who's posted pictures on social media about the aurora, that you know, they've got pictures up there. I think a lot more people are starting to sort of look up.
Well, yeah. And you know, you mentioned that Cliff Valley, really, there's a silver lining to the pandemic in that, you know, we all started looking at what could we experience together while staying apart, and that was a huge part of it. But also there's a renewed interest in space travel and exploration. How is that factored into people's interest in just what's out there?
It's part of the whole narrative, right? It's the last great frontier to explore. So I'm going to get a little nerdy here, and I'm going to say, you know, the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. Humans have only traveled 1 second at the speed of light because we've only been to the moon. We've sent probes to the other planets and all that, but that's as far as we've traveled, is 1 second light speed. So the universe is so vast. That's one of the things that gets me as an astronomer. The sizes, the distances are so unbelievable that, you know, there's always somebody, have you seen any UFOs? No, but if I do, I'll be letting people know. But I don't believe we're alone in the universe. It's just I don't think we'll cross paths with anything out there because the distances are too far. So an example of that I keep saying at our star parties is if you shrunk down the universe where the sun's the size of a basketball, and we're here on the East Coast, the nearest star to us would be in BC. So that's a lot of space between stars, you know, so it just makes people understand that if the Milky Way is 400 billion stars, and now with the James Webb they're estimating 3 trillion galaxies, like it's just so astronomical that there has to be life somewhere else. It's just we're never probably going to cross paths.
So that brings me to the question of what type of equipment do you bring to some of these events to give people a better glimpse of what's out there?
So there's a gamut of telescope and accessories to enjoy the night sky out there. You know, you get to a certain point, we use a computerized telescope that frees us up. It helps us find stuff in the sky and basically almost operates itself, so that frees us up to interact and answer questions, and it also speeds up the number of objects we can see in let's say the typical 2-hour session. So, and now we have newest technology that the little smart telescopes the size of maybe a toaster oven, and it's equipped with filters inside, and it's got algorithms and a little bit of sophisticated stuff where stuff that the human eye wouldn't capture even with a powerful optical telescope because the eye doesn't register that light spectrum. These little devices start revealing it, and they connect to your iPad, and as every 10 seconds it's shooting an image, so after a minute, 2 minutes, you can start seeing nebulas and galaxies that ordinarily you would have had to use cameras and filters and do several hours of astrophotography to then showcase that. These little devices show it on the spot, and I get people to take pictures of it while it's coming up, and then we can share that, so that gives them a little bit of a memento after the experience and all that. So it's a very intensive hobby for technology, you know. And this is the latest craze in the last couple of years, but at the same time, like I said before, some events are best observed with naked eye. Binoculars, like there's hundreds of objects in the sky you can see with a regular pair of 10 by 50s, nothing fancy. When you see the pillar of the Milky Way in the summer months between Sagittarius and Scorpius, throw binoculars in that direction. There's like dozens and dozens. Like you can look that area for an hour and you probably won't come back on the same object twice. It's
I go on a night walk every night, so I'm going to keep all these things in mind. But do you both have something you've seen that just sticks out to you as one of the most amazing things you've ever witnessed in the sky?
I'm
sure it's hard to narrow.
Yeah, I mean, the auroras as of late have been pretty impressive. I was in Campbellton for the strong solar storm we had back in early May. And I remember I was staying in Campbellton. I was over there on business. I was staying overnight, and I knew the auroras were going to be really strong after midnight. So I set up my alarm at 12:30 and looked up. I was staying in one of those glamping units I could see outside from the bed. And I was like, it's clouded. So I looked on my app. Is there a clearing close by? I'm like, okay, geez, I got to drive 40 minutes. So sure enough, jump in the car with my camera and all that, drove 40 minutes, found clear sky. I wasn't sure because the reflection of my car's dashboard, I couldn't see well in the dark. So I pulled over the side and stuck my head. I'm like, holy, I can't repeat what I said, but I pulled right over there on the highway. It was almost 2 a.m. by now, and I let the camera shoot till the batteries died. And they were so intense, I looked south and I took pictures looking south horizon, and they were all the way to the horizon. Wow. It felt like I was in the Yukon. That's how much they filled the sky, and they were, sometimes they were whitish, sometimes they were greenish, sometimes they were bluish. It was just quite a spectacle. And we've had some storms in recent months that were not quite as strong, but they gave quite the show. And you must see it all over social media. There's so many people now that are dusting off the old DSLR that's in the drawer that they haven't used in a while, and they're getting outside and they're enjoying it. And that's beautiful, and that's why when I shoot nebulas and galaxies, I share that because I see the beauty of the universe, and some of it's invisible to our eyes, but with the technology, you understand that it's out there,
And Jordan, since you were on the tourism side of things, I need to ask what you were most looking forward to of all the trips and explorations you have coming up. Which one is bucket list? You can't wait to check this off.
Can I talk about
By all means.
So we actually just had a meeting earlier this week with the agency partners that we work with for the tours, and it's also an agency that I belong to as a travel agent. But we were talking about Iceland. So there's a possibility. I think we haven't finalized everything yet, but that's kind of the most upcoming, I would think, activity that we have. And the idea is we're going to catch multiple celestial events, including aurora, of course. But I've kind of always wanted to go to Iceland. So if I don't get to go to Egypt, and I may or may not go, it just depends. I mean, it's hard to tell, right? We're quite a ways away. I'll want to go to Iceland, even if I have to be a customer. I don't care. I'll go to Iceland.
Yeah, it's the circumstances are just perfect. So there's the tail end of a total solar eclipse in August 2026. It's in August, and it's also the day before the peak night of the Perseids meteor shower. Yeah. And Iceland is almost every night you can get auroras. So you got a total solar eclipse, you got the peak night for the Perseids, there's auroras, there's glaciers, there's volcanoes. Like, that week's gonna fly by.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's quite a I jokingly referred in our email that I said this could be the astrotourism package of the decade, right? I know the eclipse in Egypt will be pretty spectacular, but yes, it's going to be almost 6 minutes of totality, but there's no other fun events in that time of the year in Egypt, so I think the Iceland one is going to be very attractive to a lot of people.
Count me in for Iceland. Count me in for Iceland. I have an old friend who even lives there. So
we'll reach out when the package is ready.
Perfect. I'll tell my boss.
Yeah.
For anyone who's watching at home right now and is hoping to be maybe a beginner in astronomy, what's your best advice for someone, aside from joining you on tours, which I think would be tremendously helpful?
A lot of people ask us that because as an astronomy club member, a lot of parents come out and say, listen, my child's interested in astronomy, what do I start with, a telescope and all that? Most of the time we'll say start with binoculars, because the price point's affordable. You can almost see as well as a small starter telescope, and also it forces people to learn the sky. So in the last 3 or 4 generations, we've lost our intimacy with the night sky. People can recognize, obviously, the sun, the moon, maybe the Big Dipper, if they're lucky, or Orion in the winter. But we all have those uncles or grandfathers that you would go on night walks, and they could tell stories about the night sky and all that. And we've lost that in the last 50 to 75 years. Like, people just don't know what's up there because of light pollution. They don't see it, so that's why. So that's one of the things that recommending binoculars or a very modestly priced starter telescope that points and view forces people to learn the night sky too. And our little pocket devices now have apps that if you're not sure what you're looking at, you point your phone at it and you can identify what it is. You can look ahead to plan your outing even and all that. So technology is really making a huge difference for people to introduce into the hobby, especially with the smart telescopes. I was saying the amount of time I used to do astrophotography, and learning all that, and now you don't have to be an astronomer. These little smart telescopes, you turn them on, and after you calibrated them, they'll find the target, they'll track the target, they'll show, you can take videos, pictures. That's, at first I was like, it's kind of cheating, but at the same time, if it pushes a lot of people to enjoy the night sky or push people into the hobby, that's can't be a bad thing, right? So
do you have a favorite constellation or something in the sky?
I go seasonal because obviously in the summer between Sagittarius and Scorpius is the core of the Milky Way, and that's where it's densely populated with nebulas and star clusters. Some you can, if you're in a dark enough sky, you can kind of pick up naked eye. In the winter, the Orion constellation has so much around it, from the naked eye Orion Nebula, which I just shot last week, and it's probably the most shot object in the sky. As you get into astrophotography and you want to test your skills, when you can get to the point you can shoot the Witch Head Nebula by Rigel, which is Orion's left foot. If you can get a good shot at that, then you're starting to get good in astrophotography. So there's different objects at different levels of difficulty. So, but Orion has just so much action around it. It's just beautiful to see, and you see it, right? Everybody that knows Orion will pick it out easily in the sky. So yeah, I think those are my favorite targets. The planets, I love Saturn and Jupiter equally too to look at. They're favorites with a lot of people I do star parties for. And the other events are a little rarer, whether it's auroras or meteor showers and all that, but they offer a different experience as well. Yeah.
I really think you are onto something special here, because we think of whale watching, birding, all these draws to New Brunswick, but this is something you can do all year and at that other half of the day.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And as we're working with destination marketing organizations and tourism operators, getting into the shoulder season is a great way to continue growing the industry, and which also is a big player in the economy. So we're trying to, with the marketing background, try to create those strategies and those experiences so that we can start catering to that. I mean, St. Andrews has a beautiful tourism brand. You got beautiful amenities here, including several accommodations from the Algonquin all the way to the Rossmount, the Kennedy Inn, and I'm leaving so many out, but you know, if with the exception of a few, if you're running for 4 or 5 months, that's kind of hard. If you have a crappy summer, where do you make up the difference, you know?
And on that note, Jordan, if someone's watching at home and looking to book either something coming up soon or later this year, what's the best way to find out what you have on offer for parties and exploration packages?
Probably the easiest thing to do would be to go to our website, cliffvalleyastronomy.com. Aside from that,
Our social media.
I would say is,
Yeah.
and it's the same on social media. Cliff Valley Astronomy, pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you both coming in today. The door's open whenever you want to come back and talk stargazing and also exploration. I would love it very much.
No, thank you. We appreciate this. Thank you.
My guests today have been Stéphane Picard and Jordan Holmes of Cliff Valley Astronomy. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.